Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for the comments and support on my last video. The first time I was in front of the camera, that was very supportive and just helped me feel good about what I'm doing. So again, thank you. Today's video is going to be about national parks, national park sites, and national forests. So let's get to it. My number one favorite national park, Glacier National Park in Montana. It is just absolutely breathtaking. Now, I've only been there once. I've been wanting to go back, haven't yet. It was in 2009. It was, again, on that road trip that I had spoken about in my previous video with my best friend Alex. We spent about 2 days there, I believe, and it was nowhere near enough time. Now, it was a road trip, so we did spend a lot of time in our car and exploring just to get the lay of the land. We walked around a little bit, but again, not too much. It is probably the first place that I had been that literally took my breath away. The mountains and lakes are just incredibly majestic. I don't really have words for how beautiful this place really is. You just have to go see it for yourself. I would say that there are fewer crowds there. It's fairly popular, rugged, it's beaming with wildlife. It's a photographer's paradise and makes you feel incredibly small. Number 2 on my list is Acadia National Park in Maine. Now, the East Coast isn't really known for a lot of incredible national parks, and I would beg to differ. There are quite a few great national parks. Acadia National Park is special in a lot of ways. I would say, for me, the biggest thing is the unique rugged coastline. You don't really get that a lot out here in the East Coast, and it's just rocky and absolutely gorgeous. The hiking there is also incredible. There are some hiking trails that I wouldn't recommend hiking solo unless you're very experienced. There's a few trails that I didn't do because I was solo, and so I would go back definitely with my husband or somebody else and hike a lot of the trails that I really wanted to hike. It's also very special because it is the first place in the US to see the sunrise, which is really cool. You go on Cadillac Mountain and you can watch the sunrise. It's beautiful. Now, it has gotten very crowded since I've been. It's been almost 10 years since I've been there. I always try to reiterate that you should be a responsible visitor at all parks, but especially a park that sees so much traffic and has a very popular tourist attraction like Cadillac Mountain. It sees thousands of people, and I've heard so many times people go and they park way down the hill in order to walk up the mountain and see the sunrise. Just be prepared and make sure you know what you're getting into. Another thing about Acadia is that it is incredible to drive. The alpine trees, the wildlife, the coastline, the people are very nice. The food in Bar Harbor is just amazing. So if you go to Acadia, just make sure to go to downtown Bar Harbor, visit some of the cute shops, and eat some of the food. It's great. Number 3 on my list is Joshua Tree National Park. I would say it's pretty popular, but it's definitely still an underdog. You don't really hear about it too much. A lot of people might see it being a boring place because it's just a desert. However, I would very much argue this. It is a very special place. I've been twice with my husband. It's a special place to us. We've stayed at the same Airbnb. It's just incredibly peaceful, and the wildlife is so rich, and especially depending on the time of year that you go. We've been in September and then we've been in October. We opted to go a little earlier the second time in September because we wanted to see more wildlife. Immediately, the morning after we arrived, we had coyote in our yard. It was just amazing, and I would highly recommend anybody visit. Now, the hiking is phenomenal as well, and because it's a desert, there are some mountains, plenty of mountains, but because it's a desert, there aren't many trees, so you can just see so far into the distance, and it's just amazing. I would highly recommend renting a campsite and staying in the desert. If you don't do that, I would highly recommend staying for sunset or going in for sunrise. It is such a unique place. The colors are just astounding. I can't say more nice things about Joshua Tree. Number 4 on my list is another underdog. It is Redwood National Park in California. Now, this place, I was here again in 2009 on our road trip, so we didn't spend a ton of time there. However, I would absolutely go back in a heartbeat and spend at least a week there. When you're driving in, it's like taking a step back in time. It's so unique. The trees, of course, are ginormous. And just such lush greenery, and especially because it rains a lot, everything's very saturated and colorful. The ferns, if you're a fern person like me, it is paradise. I don't really hear too much about Redwood National Park. I hear about the redwoods, but a lot of the time people are talking about Sequoia National Park because they are a type of redwood. But you don't specifically hear a lot about Redwood National Park. It is pretty small, but it's easily accessible. There's some great places to stay outside the park, hotels, there's also some camping. Highly recommend checking that out. And number 5 on my list is our newest national park, which is New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. It is amazing. And I know I keep saying that about everything on this list, but it is absolutely special. I predict that it's going to stay an underdog. A lot of people don't really come to the East Coast for national parks, like I said before. They just overlook a lot of the beauty that's on the East Coast. I might be a little biased because I live on the East Coast, but if you're not from here and you have maybe you're a little skeptical, I just encourage you to come out and visit and see all of the beautiful places that are here. This is Marceline. She's wanting to be in the video apparently, or just play with the plant that's behind me. Yeah, that's what she's looking at right now. Say hello. New River Gorge is also incredibly rich in history. You can do a driving tour, which is an audio tour, so you get a free CD from one of the visitor centers, and you pop it into your car if you still have a CD player. I think you can also download maybe the audio track from the website. Either way, it's an audio tour. You can choose where you want to go. You can do everything. You can do as little as you want, as much as you want. Highly recommend. You learn a lot. You kind of get a really good feel for the area and its history, and it's a great learning experience, although a lot of it is quite sad. I do think it's very important for a lot of people to know, and just take the time to consider that. It also has very lush mountains, cute towns, plenty of things to do, water sports, hiking, just endless. And I highly recommend getting out of your car and exploring the forest because you will not regret it. And my bonus favorite is Yosemite National Park. Now that might come as a surprise because it is definitely one of the most popular, if not the most popular park in the United States. Now there's a reason for that. I think maybe I had low expectations when I went because I'm not a huge fan of crowds, so I usually tend to either travel during the week. I don't go to places during the weekends. It is just a nightmare for me. My husband would say the same. We went during the month of October, which I think was the perfect time. There were fewer crowds, I would say. Again, you wouldn't know it because it was still quite crowded. The air was cool. It was just absolutely beautiful. And I will say, the first place to actually make me emotional. When I saw Half Dome, I couldn't help it. I just let my emotions go wherever they wanted to go. It was quite unexpected, so I was surprised. But I just let it happen, and I would highly recommend paying a visit to Yosemite National Park. Now, I'm going to go through some of the national park sites that are some of my favorites. So, national park sites are run by the National Park Service, but they aren't officially a national park. Number 1, Blue Ridge Parkway. No doubt. Now, I did this, I've been on the Blue Ridge Parkway plenty of times, and I've always wanted to do the entire drive. And I finally did that in May of last year, and it was the perfect time to go. It didn't get very warm during the day. It was cool at night for camping. It was just endless beauty. And I can't say enough about the upkeep. It was clean, the roads are easy to drive. You can do it as quickly as you want or as slow as you want. Although I'd highly advise to take your time. There's nothing worse than rushing a trip. You want to really make sure that you take the time to be able to take everything in, visit the places you want, hike the trails you want, get out, take a breath, and just really soak it all in. Number 2 on my list, Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. I visited here in September of 2021. It was a solo trip up there, and I stopped at Sleeping Bear Dunes on the way up, which was awesome and incredible, and I actually stayed on the way back down. Pictured Rocks is quite the unique place. I didn't really know what to expect. A lot of people had recommended it to me, especially people who were from Michigan, and they just had nothing but great things to say. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is something to be seen. You know, you hear about Michigan and people say terrible things about Michigan. I did not have that experience. I had some great experiences in Michigan, and I will gladly return. The one thing I really want to say is the camping up there is awesome. I haven't stayed at campsites quite like I did up there. My absolute favorite, there was only 5 campsites, I believe, and it was next to Little Beaver Lake. Awesome. The stars, it was just an amazing experience. It did get a little windy that night, and I was under some trees, so I got a little nervous, but all was well. Another thing, the hiking is awesome. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of sand up there, so it can be a little bit difficult depending on the trail. The closer you are to the water, the sandier it's going to be, but honestly, there is sand pretty much everywhere. Another thing I want to mention is the lake itself. The lake, not only is it huge, it is stunningly beautiful. Crystal clear water like you were in the tropics. I couldn't believe it. I had heard about it, I had seen pictures, but until you're there, you know, you don't quite believe it. Unfortunately, I went during a very windy time, so there were a lot of waves, and so like a lot of the times I couldn't see quite clearly, but when the wind finally settled down, I was able to see some amazing crystal clear blue water. And I actually went on a ship tour, which was really cool. It was a shipwreck tour, so glass bottom shipwreck tour, and I have some great footage from that tour, and highly recommend. Number 3 on my list of national park sites is Harpers Ferry National Historical Park. This one is close by to me. It's only about an hour and a half away, maybe a little bit less. I've done some hiking there. I've done some water sports there when I was younger. It's just a very cute town. Great place for like a weekend away. Again, I don't travel on weekends, but if you're into like a weekend away, go there. There's some really cute places to stay. Great restaurants. It's just an adorable little river town. Finally, I'm going to mention 2 of my favorite national forests. These 2 are hard to beat for me so far. I've been to quite a few national forests, probably over the last 20 years. Now I haven't documented them all, but I've driven through them, especially on road trips, making a special trip off the main road to go through a national forest. I highly recommend that. So, number 1 is White Mountain National Forest up in New Hampshire. Oh my gosh, like I was there almost a year ago. It was June of 2022, and I did not know what I was getting myself into. Now, maybe because I wouldn't say my expectations were low, but you know, they were kind of middle grounds. I didn't have like high expectations or low expectations. But I tell you what, I was literally blown away. 2nd place in my life to make me emotional. The presidential range alone, I literally did stare at it for hours. I stayed, after camping for a whole week, I ended up staying in a hotel right at the foot of the presidential range. It was actually right next to the entrance for the auto road that you go up to Mount Washington, which I have another story about. This place literally kept me in awe the entire time. Camping was phenomenal, the place was clean, it was easy to drive. Hiking trails were great. I didn't do as much hiking as I wanted to. Again, I was by myself, and the White Mountains are known to be very, very unpredictable, specifically Mount Washington. Because I was alone, I'm always a little bit more cautious when I'm alone, so I didn't quite do as much hiking as I wanted to. However, I did have some friends that met me there for a day, and we did do some hiking, and it was great. Number 2 on that list is Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina. This is definitely my home away from home, and my best friend Alex, who I've mentioned before, her and her husband live there. Every time I go there, I see something new. I try to go different times throughout the year just to see it in a different way. And I have so much footage from that place, so many beautiful photographs, and I can't wait to take more. Now, the Blue Ridge Parkway does run through Pisgah National Forest, so that's another reason why I love the Blue Ridge Parkway. Pisgah National Forest is a pretty large forest. When you look at it on the map, it's deceivingly large. And you can go anywhere from Linville Gorge through the Asheville area, out towards Pisgah Forest. I've done quite a lot of hiking there, and I can't say better things about the hiking trails. Every time I go, we do a different trail, but I would say my number one favorite is Balsam Knob and Tennant Mountain. It was a pretty easy hike. I think it was an elevation of maybe 700 feet, so it was pretty easy, but man, 360-degree views the whole way. You're basically following a ridge, and so you just get views the entire time, and I love that. So there you have it. That is the end of my list. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments what your favorite national park is. Is it something on this list? Is it something not on this list? Is it something that is more of an underdog? Is it something that's really popular? Let me know. Okay, story time. As I mentioned before, when I was in the White Mountains, I stayed next to the auto road to go up to Mount Washington. I wasn't comfortable hiking it because I was by myself, so I decided to do the auto road. Now, I was in our Tacoma with our company's truck camper. I'll show you a photo. And so I was a little nervous about the weight and just having a truck. It's a Tacoma, so it's not as big as some trucks, but I was still a little nervous because of the amount of weight that I had. I had all of my camping gear and, of course, the camper itself. So again, I was nervous. When I arrived, I spoke to the attendant and I asked him if he would not recommend me going up there. He asked a few questions, basically estimated the weight, and he said it shouldn't be a problem. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna try, and if I don't feel comfortable, I'm gonna come back. So the first time that I went up, it was fine, of course, at first. So I had read about the auto road before, and a lot of people were saying that was a little scary. You have to be careful, there are no guardrails, just, if you're afraid of heights, all these other things. So I was already kind of prepared for what I was getting into, but I wasn't prepared enough, apparently. So I'm going up the mountain, and all is well, and then the road starts to get pretty narrow, and I'm just climbing and climbing and climbing. So as I'm going up, there are plenty of pull-offs, which is great, because I was taking my time at these pull-offs, taking footage, collecting myself if needed, taking some selfies, all the above. I think I stopped at every single pull-off. It started getting very steep, and I started getting extremely nervous. So again, I was taking my time, but then, as good old Mount Washington fashion, a storm started coming in. On Mount Washington, it can be absolutely beautiful, it can be warm, and then all of a sudden, it's snowing. The storm is coming in, there was a little bit of sleet, and I started getting nervous that the roads were gonna be slick. So I didn't make it to the top the first time. I decided to turn around and start heading back down. And it was probably a good choice because it did start raining pretty heavily, and I just wasn't comfortable with that. So I went with my gut and dropped down the mountain. So I decided to stay at a hotel at the foot of the Presidential Range, which was probably one of the best decisions of the week. It was a beautiful hotel. I mean, nothing too special, but it was clean. Everyone was just so friendly, and I've never really dealt with people who weren't friendly, especially when I'm traveling by myself, but some are just a little bit more notable than others. They had a restaurant with huge windows looking directly at the Presidential Range, so I had dinner there. Afterward, I watched the sunset with my camera, of course. I literally stayed out there for hours, and I just could not stop taking footage. I could not stop looking at the mountains, the sunset, just everything was just so beautiful. I decided to order myself an old-fashioned, 100% a perfect evening. So anyway, fast forward to the next day. I prepared myself a little bit better. I gave myself a pep talk, and I decided to go back up the mountain on the auto road. Pull into the auto road. It was the same attendant, and he had a smile on his face, and he said, "Welcome back," which was cool because he remembered me. I don't know if it was the truck or me, whatever. It was nice that he welcomed me back and remembered me. And I told him I didn't make it up to the top yesterday, so I'm trying it again. So I get to the spot where I started kind of having a panic attack the day before, and I just start giving myself a pep talk. I was telling myself, it's okay, you can do this, you've done plenty of drives, this isn't something that's out of the norm for you, you've driven all across the country, you've driven in other countries, this is no different. So I had to lie to myself a little bit, but it got me through. I did stop pretty much at all of the pull-offs because it was a different day, so it looked a little different, and endless beauty, so couldn't help myself. So going up, and then some clouds started coming in, and it was very, very windy. It wasn't as steep, so it was kind of nice. There was this long road I could see up ahead, and so there's this pull-off spot, and even though I couldn't see the top of the mountain because it was covered in clouds, of course. So I couldn't quite tell how much farther I had to go, but I didn't think it was too far, so I pulled off. And I wanted to take a video of how fast the wind was going, and you could see it because you could see the clouds literally moving past me. I thought to myself that the hard part was over. It should be cake from here on out. So that's what I did. So I decided to just took a deep breath and did the rest of the drive. Before I knew it, I was in the cloud, couldn't see anything, which was a little scary, but again, it wasn't as steep as it was before. So I just powered through, made it to the summit where like the parking area of the summit. I park and it's just a complete whiteout. I cannot see anything, but you know what? I don't care. I made it. So I got out of my car and I walked up to where the summit sign is. I got a picture. Now, as high as I was feeling at that moment, it didn't diminish it completely, but when I saw hikers come up there with their huge packs and everything, I was like, oh. I was having a panic attack about driving up this mountain, and they literally just walked up this mountain, and I'm here taking a photo in front of the sign, and I feel like I cheated. But you know what? I was still extremely happy, and I was very proud of myself. So, got my photo, didn't even care that I couldn't see. Again, Mount Washington is very unpredictable. All in all, great trip. White Mountains blew me away, and I can't wait to return. I plan to do more of these videos. I really want to talk more about solo travel, especially female solo travel, which can be a little bit more intimidating. But again, I'm a huge advocate for solo travel, and me being a female has not stopped me. So thanks again for sticking around, and I look forward to seeing you next time.